This is Levels of Geeks podcast, bringing you action movie reviews from across the decades, plus box office numbers and insight like never before. And now your host of Levels of Geeks podcast, Alex and Friends.
Welcome everyone to this new episode. This is episode 3 of our Levels of Geeks podcast. I'm your host, Alex Figueroa, and that is
Nate from Nate Flicks.
Yeah, so if you guys heard the first 2 podcasts, we are still with the 007 Brosnan Era of the 007 as 007. So we're up to The World Is Not Enough, and then episode 4, Nate is going to take over with Speed. So Let's get right into this with episode 3. But again, please like, share, and subscribe if you guys are on YouTube. If you guys are listening to us on the podcast, please rate and subscribe to the podcast and leave a little comment down below. Tell us how we're doing. Give us some feedback so we know what we need to change and what not to change. But let's get right into the show because I'm dying to talk about this movie. I've been like itching to talk. Honestly, dude, I've been itching to talk about this movie with you. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. So this is The World Is Not Enough, 1999. Now, I have all the box office numbers from GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, and The World Is Not Enough. So we can compare and contrast to see if it's going up, the trajectory, or is it going down? So in terms of
if I remember correctly, for GoldenEye, worldwide, more money than Tomorrow Never Dies. But US, Tomorrow Never Dies made more money than GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see how the trends go here with the third one.
All right, so here we go. Worldwide for The World Is Not Enough is $361 million.
Ooh,
all right.
Okay.
It's not that bad.
Nope.
Tomorrow Never Dies grossed $333 million. So it went 30
million up.
Yeah, 30 million up. And then GoldenEye was 352 million worldwide.
9 million up. Oh, so this is number 1 out of all three.
Yeah, the third one.
Okay.
They always say the third one is a charm.
Right.
So I guess it is. In terms of domestic box office numbers, The World Not Enough came in at $126 million domestic.
Okay.
The Tomorrow Never Dies, 125 million.
Oh,
yeah.
Close.
And then World is
GoldenEye again.
Yeah, GoldenEye, $106 million.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. It looks like in the US, Bond, the Pierce Brosnan Bond is starting to get popular.
Right. He's going upward.
Yeah, he is. Now, in terms of international, The World Not Enough is at $234 million. Tomorrow Never Dies came in at $207 million. Okay. And GoldenEye came in at $245 million.
So the rest of the world said, "Hey, man, come on now. This one's not as good. This one's not as good as GoldenEye."
Yeah, I guess I was the only one that went to see this in the theater by myself. That's what it looks like. But yeah, I mean, those are the box office numbers. Nate, what did you think once we compared and contrast with all the first 2 installments of the movies?
I mean, I don't think it's crazy surprising because you got to think too. This was the 90s, so this is 99. There's no Rotten Tomatoes yet, right? Yeah. Because I know I've looked after I watched these. I go and look at the Rotten Tomato score for each one. Not that it affects me anyway, but I like to check. And they're all kind of like in middling. Honestly, they're like in the 50s. So everything after GoldenEye was highest out of all his movies. But so there you don't have that Rotten Tomato score that is putting people off, right? This was at the time. So I was a kid. I remember it's like you see commercials, you see trailers, and then maybe you read a review in your newspaper and then you go see it. That's it. There's no super amount of research that you do like you do now before you go to the theater. So yeah, Brosnan, GoldenEye was awesome. So people were like, okay, let's go see the second one. You liked it. I think, it's a little more mixed. I didn't love it, but I know there's people who like it. So by the third one, they're like, okay, we know this guy as Bond. We're familiar with him. We know the cast. Then they added, Denise Richards, who's hot. And then they got, and not just hot looking, but hot at the time, right? Because she was like coming off Wild Things. Yeah. And she was just about to do Valentine. Like her stock was high at the moment as far as like a young kind of up and coming actress. So, it had all the pieces there to make money. One thing to keep in mind, this is 4 years after GoldenEye, right? GoldenEye was 95.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the ticket price might be a little bit higher, not a huge jump, but maybe $1 or $2. So that probably helped, contribute to the extra money. But it sounds about right, because if part 2 was not well received and was terrible, I don't think 3 would have made a lot. But because it did well, and it was mostly successful, I think, it kind of goes in line.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that they all grossed 300 and above. It's not like it went down by like 200 million worldwide. Like it grossed 300 and above. So they were greenlighting this no matter what. So that's the good thing. So World's Not Enough grossed high in domestic, international, not worldwide for some reason, because GoldenEye still beats in that number for some freaking reason. But
all the Brits.
Yeah, all the Brits.
Really came out for that one.
No, they did. But again, so if you guys want to join in on the fun, we're going to give out our categories on how we score this, and then we're going to get right into the scoring because this is a 30-minute podcast. So let's have fun with this. If you guys want to score with us, leave a comment down below if you guys are on YouTube. But check this out. This is the categories. 1, lead character, main villain, action scenes, storyline, overall, and then total of points. So there you have it, guys. That's our categories when we're rating any action movies. With Bonds, we do add in the opening sequence because every Bond has themes. So that's the only special criteria we add in the Bond movies. But other than that, every action movie, those categories are going to be legit in every category that we do. I mean, every action movie that we cover, those are going to be the categories that we're going to be basing it off of. So let's go with lead character. Go ahead, Nate.
Okay, so Pierce Brosnan back once again playing James Bond for the 3rd time. And I gotta say, and I'm being honest here, I'm not being biased or anything. This was my favorite of his performances. A 4.5 is what I'm at. 4.5 out of 5. I gave him a 4 in GoldenEye. I thought he was good. But in this one, maybe it's because he's already played him twice. So he's a little more comfortable in the role, but he just really came off as more confident as Bond.
Right.
I think that he came off as tougher than he did in the first. In the second one, I remember we talked about he was kind of pissed off, right?
Yeah.
But in this one, he's especially pissed off, and I like it. I like a good pissed off Bond. And the best part of this version of him, like in this movie, I felt a lot of times like he had the most adversity that he had to deal with as a character than in the first 2 movies.
Okay.
So he kind of, it kind of made him more interesting to me because Bond, for me, what holds him back as a character is there's not a ton of backstory with him. You know what I mean? Like you're just thrown in. He's already an agent. You know what I mean? Like they give you bits and pieces here and there. Like I remember in GoldenEye, they're like, oh, he was an orphan. Okay, cool. That's all you know really though. You don't really get a coming of age. There's no coming of age Bond movie, right? Where he's like a kid. And then, so you have to just kind of take him as what he is. And for me in this one, I liked him the best. So 4.5 out of 5.
Hey, that's pretty good. It's crazy. I was watching this movie and I'm like, is this going to be the first movie that I'm going to rate super low? Ooh. But honestly, I rated him so far 5 across the board.
You did.
And I still believe he is one of the best Bonds put on the suit. And there's something about him. He gets the charm. He gets the character. And I can't knock the guy if he knows the character. So with that said, because of this script, and I was looking for stuff that he was horrible in this movie, and I couldn't find it. The one-liners, they cut that. There ain't no that much one-liners in this movie.
No,
there's
some, way lower.
Yeah, there's some, but it made sense for the scene that he was doing. So with that said, I gave him a 5 out of 5. I cannot knock him. He was so good at this. And again, the element that you said about, we're not going to go into storyline because that's storyline.
Yeah, not yet.
But what helped his character, all I will say is what I think triggered me going, this is a 5 out of 5. I cannot knock him because of that. 2 characters chemistry with each other worked so well on screen. All right, so let's get
I think this was his strongest outing, just the first 3, honestly. And again, I don't know about the next one. I haven't seen it. I've never seen it. I'm not in full, so I don't know if it gets very terrible right before he leaves or what. But I feel like this has been the pinnacle so far for me of him playing Bond.
All right, so let's get right into the main villain. There's 2 main villains here. I mean, it's not...
Okay, I was wondering who you were going to pick.
All right,
because, while watching it, I was like, who's really the main bad guy here? They're almost equal.
All right, so with this said, there's 2. And I was with you. I was scratching my head. And I'm like, well, it's not Raynar, right? I think I'm saying his name right? Radar? Or Raynar? The bad guy with the bullet in his head. I think it was like Reynard, right? Randar or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, with the bullet in the head. That character, I was like, is he? He's not. He's more the henchman. The main villain of this story, if you really sit down and you watch it like we did, is King's daughter, Elektra. She is the main villain in this movie. She played the twist very well. She was very she didn't believe me because I already saw the movie, but she was very believable being, you know, I am okay, like nothing happened to me, because she has Stockholm syndrome, and Bond kind of figured it out, and he was like, wait a minute, you're bad, lady, and I know it, but I'm still gonna bang you in the movie, so don't worry about that. But to be honest with you, King's daughter, Elektra, is the main villain in this story. I liked it. She was very believable. She had a goal. It was a very clear goal what they wanted to do in this movie. And I thought the story, I'm not going to get there. I tricked you. But in terms of the main villain, honestly, I'm going to give Elektra King a 5 out of 5. Ooh, she was very good. She was hot. She killed her own father. Yeah. She killed her own father because they allowed her to get tortured by the dude with the bullet in the head. And I was like, that is
Reynard.
Awesome.
It is Reynard.
Okay, I was right. So it was Reynard. So basically, they allowed M and the father, Mr. King, allowed Reynard to just basically mentally abuse his daughter. And she fell in love with her captor. And I'm going to give her a 5 out of 5. What are you going to give her?
Okay, so now that I know she's the main villain and she's the one I'm scoring, either way, I feel like they were strong, to be honest. Reynard, played by Robert Carlyle, a strong actor, a character actor. You know, he's never like the star of anything, but he's always good. And then, of course, Sophie Marceau, she's the one who plays Elektra King. Going off of just a touch on Reynard, I think he's very cool as a character, as far as there's literally a line in this, and there's some cheese in this. You know, we'll get to it later, but I'm okay with some cheese.
Some cheese.
Because if what the cheesy part is when the doctor is describing him, and she's like, the bullet's moving to his medulla oblongata, and every day until he dies, he's stronger and stronger. Like, he just gets stronger by the day, and I'm like, that's formidable. You know what I mean? Like, that's something you don't want to deal with. He can't feel pain because his like pain sensors are turned off.
Right.
You know, how are you going to fight this guy? Even if you beat the crap out of him, he's going to be able to keep going because he doesn't get tired. He doesn't get he's a cool villain. Now, being that he's not the main, though, I do agree with you. I feel like even though, with, you know, minor spoiler, whatever, even though he outlasts Elektra in the film, you know what I mean? She is the main villain. She's the one who set the whole thing in motion. She's really the one, the mastermind, we'll say. You know, he got to her. And the other cool thing that I like about this is, like, it's M's fault that she exists. Like, they created their own villain that they have to now. I always like stories like that, where the villain is created by the people who are now trying to stop that villain. You know what I mean? So I really liked her a lot. I think it was great that she was a woman, and she was able to use her womanly ways, if you will. You know, she can seduce Bond, and then she's trustworthy. Like, you know, M trusts her because she's I'm a woman, you're a woman, and she's sympathetic to women. And then it's overall, you know what? I'm gonna agree with you, and I'm gonna go with a 5. I think I like the character. You know, there's backstory to her. Anything like that where you can have some backstory. Sure, she has the maniacal plan of blowing up everything, but that's Bond. So you know what? I'm gonna go with a 5 as well. Actually,
wow, I'm stunned that you hit a 5 on that. And the crazy thing that we didn't say with her character, she's the one that turned Reynard against everybody. Yeah, so I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even remember that until I rewatched this movie. I was like, this is a badass main villain.
Twists and turns within the villain.
Very twists and turns. So, yeah, you're right. All right. Action sequence. Get ahead, Nate.
Action. Okay. So, this one for me had some of the best action. I will say this. There is a long break in between action scenes for a while. And that'll tie more into my overall score and my story score. But so it's not like beginning to end action. Just so you know. But what's there Okay, first of all, the opening for me, best cold open out of all three of them. It's absolutely stupid, but it's also absolutely awesome. So the scene where he's in the room with the guys and like there's like the sniper in the other room and like that whole thing.
Oh
and
yeah, and the bank, like, the Swiss banker.
Yeah, the Swiss bank, and he climbs out the window and he ties the guy to it. Like that is super cool, and it's also funny. Like because the guy's like trying to hold on for dear life, and he's like yanking on the he's yanking on the rope. It was great, and then normally like shortly after that, that's where these cold opens usually end. But no, this one keeps going.
Yeah,
you get a freaking explosion in MI6, and then you get a boat chase, okay, where James Bond is in a Batmobile boat with flame shooting out the back. And then he drives on the street. Like, you can't make this stuff up. He's driving the boat on land, like if it's just a car, okay? Then they go to a hot air balloon. Like, it just keeps going and going. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And that's just the first, like, 12 minutes of the movie, to be honest. And then from there, you get like helicopters with buzzsaws attached to them, like just carving up those buildings. I mean, there's the scene where they're in the tunnel, like going from the missile, the bomb or whatever. And
the pipeline.
Like, the pipeline, yeah. And that was really cool. Then there's the fight scene in the bunker, in the missile bunker, where he's like swinging on the chain. Like it was all awesome. I really liked all of it. The only negative on it for me was what I mentioned. Like there is a lull that it goes like a long time without action scenes. So it's not wall to wall, but what's there actually for me was my favorite so far as the action goes. So I'm at another 4.5 for the action.
Okay.
I really liked it.
That's interesting. All right. So in terms of action, I agree with you on everything. For me, this is one of the best boat scenes I think I've seen. And Roger Moore does them too. So you get used to the whole boat driving on land and then he gets on the other side. But the cool thing about this boat is that it has GPS and it tells you where the bad guy was going, which I thought, well, he wasn't looking at the bad guy. He was just telling them an alternate route. And then it turned into a submarine. And then he fixed his tie on the water. He was like, he was on the water fixing his tie. But yeah, you're right. That was pretty cool. I do like the whole bunker, the nuclear bunker, and then he's swinging and say like, "Close the door." That was awesome. That was pretty cool. The only knock for me on action, and I don't know if you agree with me on this. I agree with you 100% across the board on the action. Yes, there is a lot of dull moments. Yes, he does use his BMW car once and gets cut in half, which pissed me off even rewatching it again. Is that the ending sequence of the final act when they're fighting in the submarine? It was kind of weak. It was a weak fight.
They were moving kind of slow.
It was very slow.
It was very choreographed.
Yeah, and I felt like because they're on pipes fighting, I felt like they were like, "Ooh, if I slip, I'm going to hurt myself." So I was like, that I kind of knocked it down because I was like, it didn't feel like an actual finale of a fight. Between a guy that can't feel nothing because he has a bullet stuck in his head versus 007, which is like one of the best agents in the planet, in this universe. So with that said, I'm going to give my action sequence a 4 out of a 5.
4 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, I had to knock that point down because that final fight was not that what you wanted in a Bond movie. But storyline. I go first on this, right?
Yep.
Storyline? Yeah, so the storyline was actually really good. I think it was way better than Tomorrow Never Dies. It was a way better Tomorrow Never Dies. Way better than GoldenEye, to be honest with you. And this is very underrated movie. If you really think about it, not many people score The World Is Not Enough that high. They think it's like a boring, not boring, like story-driven, not a lot of action, but they gave you, when they give you the action, Nate said it in the action sequences, they give it to you. You enjoy yourself when you're watching the action. Once they get to the story, you got to sit back and then you got to start listening to the conversations between everybody. And I thought the storyline for this is very good, where Electra King, King's daughter, she got captured from the bad guy, but technically she was really sick in the brain herself, but they trying to use this whole Stockholm syndrome, and that's Bond's theory, and M's story came in, and I love that they focused a lot on M in this movie. And what made me sad, and I actually had my eye a little bit watery, which I'm not even going to lie to you because I'm a big Bond fan, was that this was the final movie for Q because he died.
The actor died.
Yeah, the actor died. I think it was like a year later or something like that. But he died. So this was the final movie you ever see Q in. Like that, the original Q. So he did like 17 out of 22 movies, which is a big history feat if you really think about it. I mean, even if he's corny, like whatever you want to say. But for all the Bond fans, Q is a big, like Moneypenny. Those are big characters.
Right.
Like Moneypenny's huge. You can't have 007 without having Moneypenny and Q. Those are the two main factors in the Bond movie. But they changed that in Casino in the Bonds. In the Daniel Craig era, which we're gonna get to in a few weeks. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna dive deep into that because the modern take of the Bonds get very modern, but worked. They found a formula that worked with that series era of the Daniel Craig. But in terms of the Bond storyline, a 4 out of 5. I think it was a great story.
Yeah. So just to touch on what you mentioned as far as Q goes, I don't have the attachment because like I said, I've not seen the old ones. So to me, he's just an old kind of goofball. I do like the way they send him off. You know what I mean? Like it made sense, right?
Yeah.
He has like the little, they even went off in a corny kind of joke. You know what I mean? Like you always got to have an exit strategy or whatever. And he just or escape plan. And he just like lowers into the floor and you never see him again.
Well, it was cool because it's true what he said though. Like when you see all the movies, he's been trying to teach him stuff. It's just that it goes in one ear out the other because he gets brand new cars. And he's like, oh yeah, like all these gadgets. But it's true. Right. Like those are the two models that he's trying to teach him in all the Bond movies. But it's cool that you're right.
that they tied it in, and then you get R as his replacement, who's John Cleese, who's hilarious. But in this, he's kind of,
I did not like him.
He's a weak point for me, to be honest. He's worse than Q. And not that Q's bad. He's just worse than Q. Whether you like Q or not, he's not as good. So, there you go. I agree 1,000%. The storyline is actually really good. I could see why people may not like this as much. It is very talky, especially for a good chunk of the movie. There's a lot of talking. The thing is, I was very interested in the talking part. So, I was invested. I love that M has a way bigger role in this. Not just a bigger role, because anytime you could get more, role for Judi Dench, that's a good thing.
Oh, it's really good.
Not just a bigger role, but like integral to the storyline. She's never, so far in the first two, I'm only going to go off of those. She hasn't factored. She's not that important. She's just the boss. You know what I mean? Like she's just the boss, tells him what to do, and then she's barely in the movies. And in this one, like she's a key element of the storyline. So that was really good. Bond has a lot on his plate because he got this girl. He's involved with her. She's actually turns out to be bad. He's onto her before anyone else, but nobody really believes him yet. And then you get M, who he's, who's his boss, but also, like a friend, let's say, he a mentor. So he doesn't, he got that. So I thought the story was really good. I think I have the same exact score as you. I gave it a 4 is what I wrote down here. I thought it was, it's not like a masterpiece of storytelling, but what's there is good and was more interesting to me, especially compared to Tomorrow Never Dies. Like it was way more interesting than that one. So yeah, I liked it a lot. 4.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. I know a lot of people say, "Well, you gave Tomorrow Never Dies a 4," but I gave it because I really enjoyed it. For me, I enjoyed the story. I'm not saying, but I am admitting that because I was never into The World's Not Enough. I was like, "Oh, that movie's blah blah." But when me and you went back and we rewatched it.
Yeah,
I was like, you know what? I got to take this back. This is a really good movie. If you really sit back and you start listening to the dialogue, it had something there.
It's like it's underrated because I remember saying that I watched this when I was a kid and I liked it when I was a kid. And there's a lot of movies that I like when I was 12. This came out when I was 12 years old. So I saw this in the theater when I was 12 years old and I liked it. And there's a lot of movies like that. I have nostalgia for movies, obviously, you have your Goonies and you have your movies like that. But when it comes to action, I definitely go back and watch a lot of stuff I liked. And I'm like, what? Why did I like this? Like, this is not good. And I thought that might happen here. I was like, this is going to be not as good as I remember. You know what I mean? And actually, I probably liked it much better now that I'm grown and I can kind of get some of the themes and the elements a little bit more and understand them. But I agree. I think it's underrated because I really look at the Rotten Tomato score, and then no one talks about this movie. And then the ones they do, they only talk about certain stuff, which I do have something in when we get to the overall. But I think it's underrated. People maybe should give it a revisit if they haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think people should revisit this movie again and check and give it a shot. Sit down, listen to the story, and see if you think it's better than GoldenEye or Tomorrow Never Dies. Overall, Nate, what do you give it?
So overall, got some high scores there, with the other stuff. Now, as far as the overall movie experience, again, we've touched on all our categories. So now this is where we kind of add in the miscellaneous things. You know what I mean? For one, the intro, the song is by Garbage. Now, Garbage is a very 90s, rock band. I forget her name, the lead singer of Garbage, but she's good. She has a really cool voice. Kind of almost like a deeper sounding voice. I actually like the song for this movie quite a bit. I thought it was good. The opening credit, the opening sequence is really cool. Again, the cold open was awesome. The storyline is good. The villain is great. Bond is great in this. Now, here's where I think some people might be like, And there is a layer right on the top of this movie of cheese. There really is. For as serious as it gets, there's this layer of cheese. And one of the worst elements of that is the aforementioned Denise Richards. So first of all, she is a character named Dr. Christmas Jones. That's not a lie. Her character's name is Doctor and then Christmas and then Jones. Now, it does lead to one of the better jokes in the movie where, she tells Bond her name and she's like, don't make any jokes. I've heard them all. And he goes, I don't know any doctor jokes. And she thought he was going to say a joke about Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, that was pretty clever. I like that joke. But she's not good in this. She's not good. Her line delivery is bad. She's actively bad in this movie. She's great to look at, but she's also there for she's there as eye candy. Okay. I think that they should not have made her a doctor if they were going to do that. You know what I mean? Give her a different job or something, because she's supposed to be a physicist. And the first moment she takes off like her hazmat suit and she's wearing like a little cut off tank top and Daisy Duke shorts. And it's like, come on, like what, which is, if you're there to look at beautiful people, it works. But like, as far as a character that makes sense within everything else that's happening, nah, it's not good. She's actively bad. But on the other side, I did like that they brought back the gangster from GoldenEye. He's played by Hagrid.
Valentin Skonovsky.
Yes, the Russian guy.
Yeah.
Valentin. And it took me a second to realize. I'm like, who is this? This looks so familiar. He's Hagrid from Harry Potter.
Is it?
And that's Hagrid. Yes.
Oh,
Robbie Coltrane is the actor. He's Hagrid. He's good. And then from then on, I liked him even more. And he's good in this movie. He's really good, actually. He gets a lot to do. He has a tiny, like a sliver of like a redemption moment, from being a bad guy or whatever. Although he's always been kind of a goofy bad guy. You know what I mean? So I liked him in it. But overall, the only mark I'm going to take off is Denise Richards. She's bad. And then the whole movie, they don't have any chemistry, and it ends with him sleeping with her. It's like, never once did I get it, but also it's like, come on now, which was kind of stupid. And also the pacing, they could have paced it better. They could have, instead of spreading the action scenes it's almost like they're in chunks, right? Like you have a bunch at the beginning and you have like none in the middle and then like a few at the end. I feel like if they would have spaced those out a little better, it would have helped the pacing, because it did drag a touch in the middle. So for those two reasons, I'm still going to give it a 4. I really liked it. I thought overall, this was probably my favorite one of the 3 that we've watched. So I'm going to give it a 4. I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of overall for me, I agree with you 100% across the board. I think the theme song by Garbage is really good. When I sat down and I was like, wow, I don't remember it as much. It's not memorable like GoldenEye by Tina Turner, but it's a very good song. I thought it was way better than Tomorrow Never Dies Sheryl Crow version.
Yes.
So to me, so far, Tina Turner and Garbage are leading the pack in the Brosnan era of openings songs. Yep. In terms of action, I agree with you 100%. These are all nonstop action, very good. Not edge of your seat, great, like oh my god, but the boat chase to me is still one of the top-notch boat scenes I think I've seen so far out of all of them.
Oh, we almost forgot when they're skiing and there's parachuting snowmobiles.
Yeah.
with like they all have like everything has a jetpack in this movie. They got like jetpack rocket fueled snow. They almost never land. They pretty much just fly around, and it's hilarious. That was an awesome scene too. It was cool.
Yeah, that was a cool scene too. And the crazy thing is like that's the formula for a Bond movie. They gave it to you all in this movie. You got a casino scene again in Valentine's Casino. You got the
X-ray goggles.
Yeah, the X-ray goggles were awesome. The glasses. You got the skiing. Everyone knows skiing from the Roger Moore era. It's tons of skiing throughout those movies. You got the boat chase, then onto the land, and then submerged underwater. That's tons of Bond movies. Oh, man. I mean, I could say one car that does it, but I'm not even going to say because he needs to see those scenes.
Yes.
But again, you get a lot of the good stuff. And again, and I agree with Nate 100%. Denise Richards is a god-awful Bond girl. And what sucks for me is that it's a great movie. They should have casted a way better actress. I mean, there had to be some better actresses in the 90s that were good looking. I mean, if that's what they were going for. Dan, Terry Hatchett was still available. Bring Paris back. I don't know. I mean, she did die, but
like a young, you know who'd have been good? Like a young, well, she was acting at the time already, but like Charlize Theron, someone like that, who she was a little younger at the time.
Would have been, I mean,
but at least she looks like she could be a scientist as well. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't, and it is no knock, and I'm not trying to be rude. So any of our women listeners, and I apologize in advance, but like in this movie, Denise Richards kind of looks like a bimbo. You know what I mean? Like that's like the only word I could think. She does not look like a scientist, and she's very beautiful, but she's not a scientist, whereas someone like Charlize could pass, I feel like, as being both gorgeous and you could be like, yeah, she could be a scientist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I wasn't into the Christmas character. That's her name, Christmas.
No, Christmas Jones.
Yeah, Christmas Jones. I'm not into it. So my overall rating is a 4 out of a 5 in this film. But let's get to total. My total of the whole thing is a 22 out of a 25. And this is the highest I scored so far on the 007 movie. This is crazy. The third one, and it's, again, I'm going to have to say it, is one of the best ones out of the first two movies. It's a great story, great villain, great action, great storyline. Bond is better than ever in this story. You get a lot of drama elements in this with a lot of anger, a lot of action portrayed by him. So yeah, that's a 22 out of a 25 for me. What are you giving it?
Yeah, I got, let's see, hero 4.5, villain 5, action 4.5, story 4, overall 4. It's a 22 as well. I have the same exact total. Now we had slightly different on a couple, but I think we just kind of like, and I had half points, which you don't have, but like it totaled the same thing for 22 for me as well. So first time we see exactly eye to eye. I wonder how many more times it's going to happen in the future. Someone in the comments keep count how many times we have the same exact total score. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Everything you said, I piggyback.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that said, guys, thank you so much for listening to us on this tomorrow. For The World Is Not Enough. And if you guys are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for joining in and watching The World Is Not Enough. This is our movie review. Nate, again, has a 22 score out of a 25. I have a 22 out of a 25 on The World's Not Enough from 1999.
Give us your scores in the comments.
Yes.
Break it down. Break it down how we break it down. Let us know what you give each category.
Yeah. So again, just leave it down below on the comments, and me and Nate will get to you as soon as possible once you guys put up the comments. And again, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe the video. Hit those notification bells so every time new videos are out, or we're live Monday and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, you guys will be notified. And again, if you guys want to take us on the go, listen to us on Stitcher or Apple Podcast, rate us or hit those subscribe buttons, and again, give us a comment, give us a feedback on those comments on Apple Podcasts. And again, guys, I'm your host Alex Figueroa, and that is
Nate,
and we'll catch you guys next time.